In our session today, our very own tying expert, Mike Kelly, joins us once again. Mike's going to be tying two streamers for us, Mickey Finn and a new streamer, the Delaware. Both should prove very effective this time of year here in Nebraska. Mike, all yours.
I saw something this morning. It was a streamer called the Delaware, and it was also by the guy that's credited with the Mickey Finn, and it's a real unique pattern. So I thought I'd give that a shot today after the Mickey Finn. So I will switch to the fly. That's the Mickey Finn. It was a little kind of a backstory on the fly and the name. The Mickey Finn was invented in the 1890s by Charles Langevin of Quebec, and it was known locally as the Langevin. In about the 1930s, about 1936, John Alden Knight, he's the one who also created the Delaware. Writer, outdoorsman, and actually he's the one who, he's the creator of the Solunar tables. He was given a red and yellow bucktail streamer by a friend, and he caught 75 brook trout on the fly in upstate New York, prompting him to change the name to Assassin. But the name didn't last long. Greg Clark, who's a journalist and friend of Ernest Hemingway, named it the Mickey Finn. He said this was in reference to the practice of shady bartenders spiking drinks. A notorious bartender named Michael or Mickey Finn would spike the drinks of wealthy looking patrons, and when they passed out, he'd drag them to the back room and rob them and dump them in the alley. So the term slipping a Mickey became a term for spiking a drink. So that's all pretty interesting background. I'll zoom in a little bit and show you the body on this. The Mickey Finn, the body is a silver flat tinsel, and it's normally ribbed with a silver oval tinsel over it. I've always kind of preferred the look of the gold over silver. So that's how this one is tied. A few years back, I found something at a craft store, and so I started doing a different body on some of these tinsel bodied flies. If you can see that, it's kind of a woven tinsel, and no, I did not weave it around the hook shank. Today, the one that I'll tie, I'll show you how I did that. Basically slide it onto the hook, and then I put red thread, a butt of red thread at the back to kind of tie down those ends, and coat it with some UV resin, and then tie the fly with that. Now this actually is Mickey Finn made with calf tail. Very similar to bucktail, a little bit shinier, a little more crinkly. Seems to hold its shape a little bit better than the bucktail. It gets real flat. And I tie it with both. Tonight I'll do the bucktail. With the black-nosed dace, I won't be doing that tonight, but here's a black-nosed dace tied with the that same body style. But instead of the yellow, red, yellow. It's white, black, and then brown bucktail on the top. Interesting, when it was Art Flick first started tying it, I believe he used polar bear for the white. There are rumors out there that he also used black bear for the black lateral line section there in the middle. People have also used skunk tail, and I've actually tied it with. I mean, you can use just about any hair. It looks very similar, and you can't tell the difference hardly. I've used mountain goat, black bear, and then brown phase of black bear, just to kind of make it a little bit more interesting to tie. But the actual black-nosed dace, the way it was originally tied, was again a silver tinsel body, and the tail is red wool. A lot of this isn't necessarily wool. This is probably a rayon yarn, but normally it comes in 3 or 4 plies, and you can separate the plies out. I believe this was 2 plies on this. This is a size 6. With a larger hook, you could use maybe a full piece of yarn, or with a smaller, down into 8s and 10s, you could probably go with one ply of the yarn. And when that yarn is tied down, it's tied the full length of the hook, so you don't end up with a bump in the body. So it gives you a nice smooth tinsel body. So I'm going to go to the materials here. It's getting kind of dark in here. Let me get a light first. Bring some light on the subject. And that's me. There it is. All right. For flies like the black-nosed dace, Mickey fin, other bucktail streamers, there's really no need to go out and get a complete red bucktail, a complete yellow bucktail, a complete white bucktail. If you have access to those, that's fine. Several years ago, I got a grab bag, basically, of pieces of bucktail. And as they trim them up and everything, I think they all kind of go into this pile. And it was all different colors of bucktail, olive, different colors of brown, black, white, orange, different colors. But that's what I use for the Mickey fin. That's what I use for the black-nosed dace. I also have a white full bucktail. But so I'll be using that bucktail. And the body that I was talking about, this is something I found at a craft store. It's called knotting cord. And also comes in pearl. It's just like it. And I'll show you kind of a weird technique. And if it fails, I have a pre-made one set aside to use. And for the butt section, I use a red thread, black thread, of course, for the head, but that's basically all there is to the fly. So I'll switch to the Vice camera, zoom out a little bit, and I'll show you how I build that body. So this is a piece of that knotting cord. And I just basically take a card width. Let me zoom out a little bit further. Where it curves around, and just cut it there, and just make sure I have a nice straight piece that's at least, 1.5 inches, 2 inches long, like so. So it's nice and straight. And then if you kind of grab it toward the center and slide the It's basically tinsel that's woven. Of course, it's not doing it here. But what I'm trying to do is expose the core there. And then I'll grab it with tweezers and pull it out. So there's looks like it's 2 strands of like cotton that's in there. And you just pull that center out of it, and then you're left with basically a tube, like a hollow section of, let me zoom out just a little bit more. So what I was doing, and if this goes well on camera, we'll use it. If not, like I said, I have a backup. Basically just thread it on over the hook and around the bend. The only danger is that the hook point comes through if you don't go straight. You'll end up with it kind of coming apart a little bit. So I'll go around most of the way, and then I'll go ahead and bring the point through and bring it around. And then I'll kind of condense that and put the hook in the vise. Get that a little tighter. Now I'm going to take the red thread, and sometimes it helps to slide that material forward a little bit and grab it, just to kind of keep it out of the way. This is a little bit awkward, but it's a kind of a cool effect. And I will go ahead and cut that extra off just to get it out of my way too. And then just start a little bit of red thread back here. At the end of the shank. And then I'll let that go. And then tie that down. And I'll zoom in on what I'm doing. Basically just tie those ends down, cover them up, and just make a little red butt back there. Try to cover up all of that silver. Fish won't care, but just to make it look nice. Now, if I could hand whip finish, this would be a lot easier. But I just kind of work it around the point of the hook with a regular whip finish tool. Buy that off and cut it. And then when you put some UV resin on this thread, it darkens it up and makes it a really nice color. That's probably enough right there. Move it around so it doesn't get a glob. And I don't know if it makes a difference, but I turn off, I don't know if it's gives it more UV light if it doesn't have the other light in the background. Hit it with the UV light, and then that's all dry. And then straighten it out, grab the black thread, and about an eye length back, just start wrapping over that. several wraps there. And then if you cut a little bit on top there, should be able to pull it around. And get the rest of that off. And then I'll just kind of make sure all that's tied out of the way so it doesn't grab anything. And so that's what I end up for the body, is kind of a braided body like that. I think you've probably all seen the Titzel body plenty of times, enough to know how that goes. So the rest of it's fairly easy. And God knows I to this day I catch myself doing it. You can really overdress these easily. When you're tying in 3 clumps of bucktail, you have a tendency to grab what you think is enough bucktail for the fly, and then you end up with too much. I'm going to grab about halfway down and just get the real short stuff out of there over the waist. And I'm going to go ahead and stack this. I prefer it to be a little bit natural, but usually what I'll do is stack it just to get control of it. And you can see in my stacker here, the bucktail is pretty long. So I stack it a little bit, and then I'll go ahead and cut about an inch off of the waist there. That way it doesn't stick out as far, and it'll stack a lot better. So that's not perfectly stacked, but it's close enough. A lot better. So I'll just mark that. I like to go at least a hook shank, a hook gap past the end, maybe a little bit more for the wing. So I'll mark that with my fingers and cut it. I'll start this one a little bit further back. Take some nice tight wraps over it. And then another thing with these heads, you have a tendency to want to cover everything completely every time you put in another step. You don't really have to do that as long as it's nice and secure. You can just leave it like that. If you cover those butt ends completely with every step, that's just a lot of excess wraps that you don't really need. I'm going to grab a section of red. Because you end up taking some of them out, maybe start with a little bit more than what you think you'll need. But like I said, you just don't want to overdo it. What you end up with if you overdo the bucktail is sometimes the bucktail will pull out because there's really not enough thread to really hold it down, bind it down to the hook shank. But also it loses its motion, like the hair will just kind of stay stiff and it won't move very much. So you can hand stack it a little bit like that, get it pretty close. But I think I will go ahead and just give it a quick stack. Okay. The red, some people like to put the red a little bit shy of the ends of the yellow. It's just kind of up to you how you want to do it, whether you want it to be the same or a little bit shy. But I'll mark that like I did the other. Cut the butts. If you're trying to cut all the butt ends at the head of the fly here, it can really get cumbersome, make a mess. And sometimes it's easier to get control to get your stripes. Now there I've gone a little bit to my side with the red, so I'm going to do that again. It's pretty good there. Grab a section of yellow again, same thing. That's way too much. Try to hand stack this as much as possible. If you get it hand stacked a little bit, it just kind of tends to work a little better in the stacker than okay, and there's the yellow. Want it to be about that length right there. Now you can see the hook bending. I'm doing really tight wraps because you don't want that to pull out. And then I'm going to clean up a little bit there at the eye and just build a little bit of shape there. Now, if you spin it counterclockwise as if you're looking down on it, you can clean that head up a little bit better and make it more smooth. Whip finish. And then whether you use regular head cement or UV resin, I just think the UV really gives it a nice look when it has a glossy head. A little bit of durability. Now the Mickey fin being black and yellow, it, of course, great brook trout fly, but also it's a good bass fly. I always wanted to try it maybe mid to late March, right before the walleye spawn, and see around the dam faces and stuff if you can get any walleye on something like this too. With the contrast of yellow and red, it's highly visible in you know, the kind of murkier water that we have around here. But that's the Mickey fin. Any questions on that?
It's pretty, Mike. I'm wondering if have you tried it against Sawguy?
Sawguy, sauger,
Yeah.
walleye,
Yeah.
bass.
I understand that off the Cunningham Dam, they were picking up some Sawguy last year.
I will say for crappie, I've tried the Mickey fin, I have caught crappie on it, but um, by far the black-nosed dace is that's that's the one that I would catch, most of them on. I don't know if it looks more like the minnows that they're eating, and I don't know if that color um, puts them off. But again, the original or as close to the original is with that flat tinsel body. All right, for the next one, this is going to be a lot different. And I'll just go a little bit at a time on the materials here. So this fly, the body is actually, it's supposed to be yellow tinsel with a red tinsel butt, but I don't have red tinsel. I'm sorry, chenille, yellow chenille with a red chenille butt. So I'm just going to use this same wool that I would use on a black-nosed dace. The tail is goose shoulder. Instead of goose shoulder, I'm going to use, I have some duck quills. It's very similar material, so I'll just use a couple slips of that. That's also used in the shoulders on the fly. It has a underbelly of white bucktail. The wings are white saddle hackle. And I'm just using a white India neck for that. I've kind of pre-selected some feathers. Now I'll show you maybe, you can see it here. You can see that it has a curvature. If you take the feathers from the left, as you're looking at the cape, if you take them from the right side, they're going to be curving toward the center of the cape. If you take them from the left side, they're going to be curving toward the center of the cape. So when you want the nice, shiny side of the feather sticking out, and you want them to cup together, if you can, it's nice to get two from the left and two from the right and have those like opposing each other. So you can see how that's kind of like, you know, pressed together, kind of like a knife blade, similar to what Ian Anderson did for some of those Carrie Stevens flies. It has a red hackle, and I'll just use a red saddle hackle that's actually pretty real webby. It's almost like a schlappen kind of stuff. And we'll go from there. Like I said, it's a pretty unique fly. So I'll get started with I'm using 140 denier black, and that's so it's a bigger fly. This is a size 4. Um, Actually, the one that I saw was done on a 1/0 or a 2/0. Um, a lot bigger hook. Because this is a chenille body, you don't really have to worry about a smooth red base, but I always do just to be consistent with how I tie. I'm going to grab from these quills, zoom out a little bit here. I'm going to grab a couple of slips from this. And if you look at the curvature of the feather, they want to press together, like this. So I'll get one from each side and then form them together. Maybe, I don't know, I guess this would be about 1/4 of an inch, if that. So I'll take those two slips, make sure the tips are even and they're opposing each other so they press together nice and smooth like that. And at the end of the shank here, I want those to be, like I said, really, if you look at it, it's about a gap past the bend of the hook there. And so I'll just come up with a pinch wrap and just keeping it pinched tight. It's a nice flat body, and then I'll just tie that all forward. Now, I'm actually this does have a rib that I didn't talk about. It's a gold oval tinsel. And I'm going to tie it on my side because I actually want this to, I'm going to reverse wrap this so it'll show up better. So I'm going to keep it on my side. And I don't want to jostle the tail, so I'll stop right there. And then with my yellow, well, we got to do the red first. Take the cleanest side here. And I just want to grab it by the very ends. I just pulled it through there. And then take that wool and just make a little, actually, yeah, I think it'll be okay. I think what I should have done was tied in the red butt first and then the gold tinsel. We're doing fine on time. I'll go ahead and do that because I don't want to do it half-ass. If you have an opportunity to make a change, as well go ahead and do it.
Yeah, I think that's a good rule, Mike. Never always try to do the best you absolutely can. Never be
If
satisfied with second best.
especially for the for the video and everything, you kind of have a tendency, well, I'll just press on for the sake of time or whatever. But I think what I might also do is double this. It seems like one strand isn't quite enough. Oh, here's two strands. I had that in the materials camera. So I'm going to cut the fuzz off of there so I have a nice clean end. Come back here and tie that down nice and snug. And then I'll twist it. Make a little red butt there. Very unique pattern. I just pulled it out. Very unique materials for this body. Like that. And I'll tie that off a little better. And then I'm just going to go ahead and work this up the hook shank just to, like I said, just to keep, I think this would give kind of a bulge in that body, and I don't want that. Cut off the excess. I'll return back to the back. Now, everybody knows with the chenille, you can strip off some of that fuzz and get to the core and tie that string core in.
You have to put the ribbing wire in first?
I do. That goes on my side,
Okay.
and I'll just tie that in on the way up. How's that? Okay, now the yellow. I might want to go a little bit closer to the eye. Let me. And then I'm going to reverse wrap, because if I wrap the other way, it would get down in between the wraps of that chenille, and it wouldn't be as visible. Now, the thing about reverse wrapping something like a thicker chenille like this is, as you're tying it off, you're actually pushing it toward being loose. So you have to be careful that you get some real good tight wraps before you do anything with it. Because as you push this way, the thread torque is bringing the pencil in into a loose direction.
Yeah, Mike, what
That
I
makes
do when I
sense.
reverse wrap is I reverse the thread right there too. I just take one half wrap around the tinsel and then just start wrapping in a reverse wrap. And then just, when I'm done, I just half wrap again.
Right, you could do that as well. All right. There's a underbody of white bucktail. So we're going to do the same thing. See if I can get some of this cleaner stuff here. Snip it free. Too much. Pull out the broken ones. And some of the shorter stuff. This may not need to be stacked. Take a few more short ones out. I'll give it a quick stack. So this is an underbody, just right inside the gap of the hook there. So again, I'm going to cut that off ahead of time, so I'm not trying to cut it by the eye of the hook. Tie that down with some nice tight wraps. And then, like I said, I selected those feathers, 2 from the left, 2 from the right. You can do this. You can do this with just 2 feathers. That just gives it a little bit more pronounced of a wing, especially when it gets wet. Want this to go just past the tail. So I'm going to actually strip off a little bit more of this hackle from the ends there. That'll be just about right. Come back up the hill. Now there's a little bit of slipping going on. So I'm going to use some thread wax. It'll give it a little bit more grip and help me get several tight wraps over that so I don't, so that's on top. I want several wraps before I clip off those butt ends. And then I'll continue with that waxed thread to just kind of tie all that down. Now just a couple more steps. I've never done a fly like this before, but it calls for very similar to the tail. On each side, is a cheat of, again, the original called for goose shoulder. There's the one on my side. And one on the far side. And last, is hackle. So I tie this in. At the back of the head. take a few wraps, sweeping it back as needed. And now and that hackle kind of covers up those cheeks anyway, but it was similar on the one that I saw tied this morning. I'm gonna just clean up that head a little bit more. Whip finish. I think maybe that hackle was a little too webby. See how it wants to kind of stick together. But I think that's a beautiful fly. Very interesting.
It is.
I think it'll look great in the water.
What's its name again, Mike?
It's called the, where did I write it down? The Delaware. The guy I saw tie it this morning was, it's Andy's Flies on YouTube. I just recently added him to my YouTube watching list. Very, very clean flies. He does a really, really good job.
Yeah, what was the first one again? I didn't write it down.
The first was the Mickey fin.
That's what I thought.
And
Beautiful flies, Mike. Well done. Nicely. Thank you.
yeah, I think if I was to do that again, I would use more just like saddle hackle. Like less webby, I would use something like that. I think the hackle would stand out a little bit more
Yeah.
and not, um, you know what I mean? It's kind of trying to
Yeah.
marry together.
I think it'll fish just fine, but
Oh, absolutely.
from a,
Absolutely.
an evaluation perspective, yeah, I would too.